Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. And today I'd like to show you how I made this card. I just got this set, which is made up of a couple of different pieces. It's this stamp set, Christmas Quilt, and then this framelit set, Quilt Builder Framelit Dies. And I've been itching to make something with it, and this is the card I came up with, and I just think it's so cute. If you do any quilting or any needle arts, this one has a lot of appeal. And so let me tell you what I used to make this card. I used a piece of cherry cobbler that's 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. Then I have two pieces of Whisper White, one for the inside and one for the outside, that measure 4 by 5 1/4. Then I have a larger red cherry cobbler piece that measures 3.5 inches square. And then I have three pieces that all measure 3 1/4 square, another plain red, and I'm using paper that comes from the Be Merry Designer Series paper is what it's called, and the colors are cherry cobbler, garden green, and Whisper White. And this paper is just really very pretty, lots of small pattern, which is great for backgrounds. Let's see, there's these stars, mittens on the back, these cute little reindeer, and that's the other side of this paper that I'm using, and this herringbone, I think it is, and green with a little bit of white speckles, and then it's got green like stars or snowflakes on the back side. This paper that I'm using here, which has these cute little trees on the back side. Let's see, this one also, it looks very much, these pieces, like quilting material. So this one has green, oh, I don't know, they look like little Christmas trees on one side. And on the other side of this one is sort of ornaments and stars and all different kinds of things. And so I decided to use this paper, and I'm using this pattern here and this pattern to make my quilt. Then I have a piece of garden green, and this piece of garden green is 3 inches square. So let's just get started and I'll show you what I did. First thing, of course, is always to fold and burnish our card base and get that done and get that moved out of the way. And I think I'm using cherry cobbler ink, and the stamps that I'm using from this set, let's see, I'm using Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. I used the piece, I used this little star, and I used this outline that represents this piece here, and I did that on the inside. And I think that is all I used from the stamp set. Now, from the dies come, I haven't even had a chance to put this on a magnetic card yet. The dies come in these patterns here. There's some little holly leaves, a star, needle, a little round flower looking thing. This could be used as a spool of thread, just kind of I'm thinking that's a trapezoid. And a couple of like quilting pieces, one that's got some stitching on it, and some that are just outside framelits. Then on the other side, was this square, and then the piece that ended up being the outline for this, and let's see, where is, oh, it's still attached to my designer series paper. So it is this piece here that cuts out all of the little pieces on the inside. And we're going to do a tiny bit of paper piecing, but it's not much. This is, again, using the designer series paper to do most of the heavy lifting. So I think what I'll do is start with my Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, because if once I get that stamped on the bottom of the card here, then I know right where I can put my quilted square up on the top here. So I'm just going to go ahead and ink up this piece, and I've got my pierce mat here and a piece of scratch paper, and then my photopolymer stamp here that I'm going to get good and inked up here, and try to get this as straight as I can towards the bottom of the card here. And hopefully, there we go. We have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. Good image. All right. The next thing I'm going to stamp is using the little star. You see, I stamped a star on this side of the image and one down here on this side of the image. And that's all the stamping I need for the front of the card. Now, on the inside of the card, what I did was I put a few of the stars, the piece, and then this representation of the quilt down here on the bottom. So let me get my piece stamp first and put that up here near the top. Use my grid paper lines here to help me get this reasonably straight. Okay, so piece right here in the center. All right, then I put the little stars around on, and I put one right on the end of the E, and I put one right on the bottom of the P, and then I scattered a couple more around just here at the top. Those weren't stamped very well, but this is photopolymer, so I can go over them because I can see where I'm stamping. All right, so I see here that I've got an edge on the bottom of this that isn't cut straight there. All right, the next thing I did was to use this image of the stitched quilt pattern that's on the front and ink that up really good, and then just get an image kind of partially off the card on this side, just to tie the front and the inside of the card together. This is a fairly large stamp, so you want to make sure you get pressure at all of the points on the stamp. And there we have a nice image of that on the inside. All right, so that takes care of all of our stamping. And so I think I can put this ink away. And now comes the assembly of our little quilt square here. And so we start with the largest red square. And then we have this piece of, and this is, you watch your patterns here. So this is directional. And so I had the back part of the paper here, and then the pieces all going in the same direction. So this piece can just be adhered. I've got kind of a pile over here, so I've got to find my snail here. Here we go. And go ahead and get that piece adhered down on the piece of red. Okay. And again, in a directional way and as centered as I can get it with the same margin all the way around. That piece is followed by my garden green piece here, which I'm going to attach. And these pieces are all being laid down flat, and then the whole quilt square is raised on dimensionals. So this piece now gets centered on here. Okay, now then, what I did with this piece is, well, maybe I should show you the designer series paper first. So I had a piece of this paper and another piece of this paper that were cut roughly, I think it was 3 1/4. Yeah, 3 1/4. And because the designer series paper is thin, there's no reason you can't cut both of these pieces together. So let me show you what I got when I did that. And you're going to end up with lots of little pieces, and I'm just going to punch these pieces out. And they come out really easily. Here, it cut through both of these pieces without any difficulty at all. And I want to show you what you've got when you're done. You have 2 pieces that look like this, and look at that. I think with the pieces that are left over, doing a little bit of trimming, you can come up with a couple of very interesting looking things here. And there's so many pieces that you're not using for the paper piecing here, and looking at the other sides of those papers, that there's just quite a bit that one could do with the pieces that are left over. I'm not convinced that you couldn't get 3 or 4 cards out of just sort of one punching. Now, the smaller red piece, what I did was I put that die on this red piece, and then I put the other die, which is this square frame, and I made sure that that was set down so that there was an even border all the way around, and I cut out this piece so that I now have a pattern or a place that I can put my pieces on here and get the look that I'm after. Okay, so on the paper piecing, we know that we only need these kinds of pieces here. So let me just sort those out here a little bit and do away with the other pieces that we don't need here. Okay, so what I've done is I have filtered through all of the little pieces and just taken out the ones that I know I need to make my little quilt here. And the others, like I said, are actually quite a few little pieces that I think you could turn into something else that's kind of interesting. And I think if you cut the pieces For 2 cards, you could probably make 4 or 5 by the time you got done with all of the interesting little bits that are left over. So now it is adhering these pieces down. So I'm going to move them off of my green piece here, trying to keep them reasonably in order there. And I'm going to use just a little bit of Tombow on the back of this piece. And I've got my silicone mat here, which I will bring out. And I'm going to get a little bit of Tombow, if I can, on the back of this piece. Okay, so I have the glue on the back of my piece here. This card was kind of fun and very satisfying to put together. I don't know if women in your family did needlecraft, but in mine they sure did. I have some amazing old quilts that belong to my husband's grandmother that were handmade, and my grandmother, and I've made a couple myself, and there's something that's just very pleasing about this whole idea of the quilt and the pattern here. Okay, so let's see about putting these pieces in place, and I'm just going to dry fit these first so I know exactly what pieces I want where. Okay, so I have dry fit these component pieces on here, and now what I'm going to do is, using a little bit of Tombow, get a little bit of glue on the back of these little pieces. I've got all of my pieces glued down now, and there will be a little bit of glue that kind of oozes out of the edges of this, but it's Tombow, so it dries clear, and then you can always use your glue eraser to pick that up. Isn't that just very pretty? There's something about that pattern that's just very pleasing. So the next thing I'm going to do is put some dimensionals on this, and I think we're just about at assembly. Let's see, this piece I think is ready to be adhered to the front of my card. So I'll do that next. And honestly, aside from sorting all the little pieces, this card is actually pretty easy to do. Simple design, and I think the designer series paper really carries this one. So all right, there we go. And then put our piece on the inside here. Okay, there we go. And there we have our pretty little quilt pattern Christmas card. I think that is just so cute. And I suppose you could put, in fact, maybe I'll do that, put a few rhinestones on this just to dress them up a little bit. And there we go. There is our quilt pattern Christmas quilt, if you will, piece card completed. And I just think that's so pretty. And again, just a little bit on the inside. Might add a rhinestone or two in there and maybe one down here just to give a little bling on the inside if that appeals to you. But that's our project for the day. So thank you so much for stopping by and watching my YouTube channel today. I do appreciate it. And I did hear from one of the demonstrators whose cards I showed in my swap, one of the Arkansas team that recognized one of the cards that was done by one of the other demonstrators in their group. So this was the card that was identified for me, and this card was done by Crystal Clay, who is part of that Arkansas group that was there that was so kind to me at my swaps. And so I wanted to make sure that Crystal got credit for that. May all your tomorrows be as happy as today, using some pretty designer series paper and a few of those branches and some of the twine. Very, very pretty card, Crystal. Thank you. Now, let's see. The prize draw for this month is some of the new Stampin Blends, which are out and available for purchase now. And my offer this time is 4 sets of 2 colors, your choice of the colors. So if it were, for instance, Bermuda Bay, there would be a light Bermuda Bay and a dark Bermuda Bay. And so it's a choice of 4 color sets. So 8 markers plus the ivory, the bronze, and the color lifter. And it's worth about $49 in the catalog, and it would get you well on your way to getting your own collection of the Stampin' Blends. And so that's the prize draw. Anything that you see here can be purchased from my 24/7 shop, www.albedinger.stampinup.net. And the host code will show up here in just a second. Let's see. So you can order anything that's here, or you could join my team. One of the benefits, particularly right after the first of the year, there's always an incentive for people to join Stampin' Up, an additional incentive, I should say, to join Stampin' Up during Sale-a-bration. And now we've had the chance to see the new catalog that'll be coming out in January, and the Sale-a-bration catalog. And there's some lovely things in there. The papers particularly are absolutely gorgeous. And so I will start soon here making some projects, because the spoiler alert has been lifted. I can't show you the inside of the catalog, but I pre-ordered while I was at the convention quite a bit of material. So I'll be getting some things that I can show you and demonstrate cards that I make with the things that I got. And some of them were prizes, and some of them were things that I ordered. And be happy to show those to you once I have a chance to make a few projects with them. And my box gets here. Hopefully it'll get here tomorrow or the next day, and so maybe on Sunday I can put something out from the new catalog. In any case, that's it for me today. I'll be back soon with more projects and more cards. So see you soon. Bye.